Women's rights, a cause that has shaped societies and redefined history. But centuries ago, the idea of gender equality was met with resistance, silence, and skepticism. Enter Mary Wollstonecraft, a woman far ahead of her time, a trailblazer who dared to question the status quo and demand change. Known as one of the first feminists, Wollstonecraft's work wasn't just groundbreaking, it was revolutionary. Her writings ignited conversations that echoed through generations, laying the foundation for the women's rights movement we know today. But who was Mary Wollstonecraft? How did her ideas, penned in the 18th century, continue to resonate in the 21st? This is the story of a woman who changed history with her pen and her courage. Mary Wollstonecraft was born on April 27, 1759, in Spitalfields, London, to a family teetering on the edge of financial ruin. Her father, a failed farmer and heavy drinker, subjected his family to a life of instability and hardship. From a young age, Mary witnessed the vulnerabilities of women. Her mother, often the target of her father's temper, was a stark example of the powerlessness many women endured. But Mary was different. Even as a child, she refused to conform to societal expectations. She saw the world not as it was, but as it could be, a place where women were not just seen, but heard. Unlike many girls of her time, Mary valued education as the key to empowerment. She taught herself by reading every book she could find, from philosophy to politics, determined to rise above the limitations imposed on her by society. Her thirst for knowledge was insatiable, setting her apart from her peers. At the age of 19, Mary left home to carve her own path. She worked as a companion to a wealthy widow, and later as a governess. But it was her time as an educator that sparked her passion for advocating women's intellectual development. She believed that education wasn't just a privilege, it was a right. In 1792, Mary released her most famous work, A Vindication of the Rights of Woman. This manifesto was a scathing critique of the societal norms that kept women subservient. Mary argued that women were not inherently inferior to men, but were denied the opportunities to prove otherwise. She demanded education, independence, and equality for women, a radical idea for the time. In 1787, Mary Wollstonecraft made a bold decision. She became a writer. At a time when women were rarely published, this was an act of defiance. But Mary's determination paid off, and soon she was contributing to magazines and publishing works of her own. Mary's writing was heavily influenced by the French Revolution, a movement that promised liberty and equality. But Mary saw a glaring contradiction. While men fought for their rights, women remained excluded. Her vindication wasn't just a call for gender equality. It was a challenge to a revolution that claimed to stand for justice. Her work was met with both acclaim and outrage. While progressive thinkers applauded her courage, critics dismissed her as too radical. But Mary remained steadfast, using her voice to ignite a conversation that could no longer be ignored. Behind her public persona as a fearless feminist was a woman who faced immense personal struggles. Mary's relationships were often turbulent. She fell in love with Henry Fuseli, a married artist, only to face heartbreak. Later, she traveled to France and began a romance with Gilbert Imlay, an American adventurer, with whom she had a daughter, Fanny. But their relationship ended in betrayal, leaving Mary devastated. In a moment of despair, she attempted to take her own life, only to survive and find renewed purpose. These hardships didn't break her, they shaped her. Mary channeled her pain into her writing, producing some of her most poignant works. Mary's experience as a mother fueled her advocacy for women's rights. She believed that a woman's role as a mother should be respected and supported, not used as an excuse to confine her to the domestic sphere. Her writings on motherhood were ahead of their time, emphasizing the importance of nurturing both the mind and spirit of the child and the mother. By the late 1790s, Mary found love again with philosopher William Godwin. Their relationship was unconventional, yet deeply intellectual. They married after Mary became pregnant, and in 1797, she gave birth to her second daughter, Mary Shelley, who would go on to write Frankenstein. Tragically, Mary Wollstonecraft's life was cut short. Just 11 days after giving birth to her daughter, she passed away from complications on September 10, 1797. She was only 38 years old, but while her life was brief, her impact was monumental. Mary's ideas laid the foundation for the feminist movements of the 19th and 20th centuries. Suffragettes often cited her vindication as a source of inspiration, and her belief in the power of education has shaped modern discussions about gender equality. For years, Mary's legacy was overshadowed by controversy. Critics focused on her personal life rather than her work, dismissing her as immoral. But in the 20th century, feminist scholars rediscovered her writings, bringing her ideas back into the spotlight. Today, she is celebrated as a pioneer, whose courage paved the way for generations of women to fight for their rights. Mary Wollstonecraft was more than a writer. She was a visionary. Her work reminds us that progress often begins with one voice daring to speak out. She challenged her time, defied conventions, and inspired a movement that continues to evolve today. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life and legacy of Mary Wollstonecraft. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories about the trailblazers who shaped our world. Until next time, let's continue to honor their legacy by fighting for equality, justice, and the power of education for all.